I still remember the call like it happened yesterday. It was a cold, overcast morning in early March, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes even the coffee taste colder. I was at the clinic reviewing a case file when the emergency line lit up. The voice on the other end was tight, trying to stay calm, but I knew the tone well. It was panic just under the surface. "Hi, Dr. Lewis? It's Emily Reed, Willow's owner. Something's wrong. I think it's colic. She's down and won't stay up. Can you come?" Colic. The word alone speeds up every equine vet's pulse. It's not a diagnosis but a symptom, a catch-all for abdominal pain that can range from mild discomfort to a surgical emergency. And when a horse as sensitive as Willow shows signs, it's never taken lightly. Willow was a 10-year-old warm-blood mare, strikingly elegant with a white star on her forehead and that calm, watchful intelligence in her eyes. I'd known her for a few years, routine vaccines, dental work, and a lameness exam once. Nothing serious. She belonged to Emily Reed, a competent horsewoman who ran a private barn in the outskirts of the county. Emily wasn't prone to overreacting. If she was calling, it was bad. "I'm on my way," I told her, grabbing my emergency bag and signaling to Jamie, my tech, to meet me at the truck. We loaded up and sped off. The barn was about 35 minutes out. We made it in 22. I don't think I've ever driven faster, and when we pulled into the gravel drive, I could already see Emily waving us toward the paddock. Willow was down, sides heaving, slick with sweat despite the chill in the air. She'd tried to get up when we arrived but gave up halfway, groaning and shifting her weight. Her lips were tight, nostrils flared, and her abdomen visibly distended. It was classic colic posture, legs tucked, neck stretched, eyes wide. But this wasn't any ordinary colic. This was critical. I approached cautiously. Even the gentlest horses can become dangerous in pain. But Willow let me kneel beside her. Her trust never failed to humble me. First things first, vitals. Jamie handed me the stethoscope. Heart rate, 68 BPM. That was high. Respirations, shallow and rapid. Mucous membranes were dark pink and tacky, early signs of dehydration and poor perfusion. Gut sounds were nearly absent on the left and high-pitched on the right. I didn't like that at all. I passed a nasogastric tube. No reflux, at least not yet. Rectal palpation was next, which she tolerated better than I expected, though she flinched and grunted when I reached the small colon. I could feel tight loops of intestine, distended. Firm, possibly twisted. The words, large colon volvulus, floated through my mind like a death sentence I wasn't ready to pronounce. "Jamie, we need to get fluids going now." While Jamie prepped an IV catheter, I briefed Emily. "I'm worried this is serious. Possibly surgical. She's in pain, and it's progressing fast. We'll try to stabilize her, but if she doesn't respond in the next 30 to 40 minutes, we'll need to get her on the road." Emily nodded. "Do whatever you need to." We started her on 10 liters of warmed fluids with flunixin for pain. I sedated her lightly with xylazine to give her some relief without masking clinical signs. She stayed down, breathing heavily, groaning now and then, her tail twitching with discomfort. We waited. 15 minutes in, there was no improvement. 20 minutes. Her heart rate climbed to 72. She tried to roll. Jamie and I lunged to stop her. Rolling could twist the intestines further. We got her to her feet, but she immediately tried to go back down. Her gums were darker now. The clock was ticking. "Emily, we need to move her. Now." To her credit, Emily didn't flinch. She made a quick call to a nearby equine surgical hospital while Jamie and I rigged up Willow's travel setup. Emily's trailer was already hitched. Getting Willow in took 4 people, some coaxing, and all of our strength. She was clearly in agony, but she loaded, barely. As they pulled out, I followed in my own truck, praying the entire ride. Horses don't show pain until it's severe, and Willow's signs were off the charts. I've seen horses go down in transit and never get back up. I tried not to imagine that. When we reached the surgical hospital, Dr. Harriet Mason, an equine surgeon I respected deeply, was waiting with her team. We rolled Willow out fast. They led her into the exam bay as I filled them in. Harriet's brow furrowed as she palpated, then scanned her abdomen via ultrasound. "Large colon volvulus," she confirmed. 360 degrees, possibly more. She needs surgery right now. It was the diagnosis we feared, and we both knew the prognosis. Large colon volvulus has a narrow window, about 4 to 6 hours from onset, and even then, survival isn't guaranteed. The intestine twists on itself, cutting off blood flow, causing tissue death. The only chance is to untwist it surgically, fast. Emily was already signing the consent forms when I caught up to her. She's going into surgery now, I told her. It's going to be tough, but she's in the best hands. Her eyes were glassy, but she nodded. She's strong. She's fought through worse. And with that, we watched as they wheeled Willow into the OR. I've assisted in surgeries before, but that night, I stayed in the observation area. I wasn't on the clock anymore, but I couldn't leave. I knew what was at stake, and I owed it to Willow to be there. Inside, it was clinical precision. Harriet calling out for instruments, her assistant checking vitals, the anesthesiologist monitoring every second. They opened Willow's abdomen and found what we'd feared, a 540-degree torsion of the large colon. The tissue was dark, bordering on necrotic. But Harriet worked fast, untwisting the colon, checking for viability. Miraculously, some color returned. There was hope. By midnight, the surgery was over. Willow was moved to recovery, still under anesthesia. We stood by her side, waiting for her to wake up, praying her system would tolerate the shock. Around 2 a.m., she stirred. And that was the first moment, just the barest glimmer, when I thought she might make it. But the real fight was only beginning. When Willow first opened her eyes in the recovery stall, the room felt completely silent. Harriet, the anesthesiologist, a tech named Rachel, and I stood by like sentinels, barely breathing. Post-op recovery in horses is one of the most dangerous moments. Unlike dogs or cats, horses can seriously injure themselves, or die, trying to stand while disoriented from anesthesia. And after a major abdominal surgery, that risk multiplies. If Willow thrashed, she could tear the incision or collapse from cardiovascular failure. We had only one shot to help her regain her feet safely. Her ears flicked. Her breathing hitched. She's starting to come around, Rachel said quietly, stepping toward her with a padded headrest. Willow shifted, groaned, then tried to rise, but her hind legs buckled and she fell back hard. "Easy, girl, not yet," I murmured, more to myself than to her. After a second attempt, with guidance from the recovery sling, she finally stood. Wobbly, sweating, but upright. Everyone exhaled at once. I checked her heart rate, 60 BPM. High, but not unexpected. Her gums were still dark but slightly improved. Most importantly, she wasn't going down again. "Let's get her moved to ICU," Harriet said, already calling in the overnight vet to prep her recovery protocol. For the next 72 hours, Willow remained under 24/7 monitoring. We placed a jugular catheter for continuous IV fluids, a nasogastric tube for reflux management, and began a strict medical regimen: antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, gastroprotectants, and analgesics. Every 4 hours, we checked her vitals, did abdominal auscultation, and monitored for signs of laminitis, ileus, or endotoxemia, all potential complications after colic surgery. And the reflux started. By noon the next day, we'd pulled 12 liters of gastric reflux, evidence that her gut was still paralyzed, post-operative ileus. That worried us. It meant Willow's intestines weren't moving yet, and the risk of fluid overload or aspiration pneumonia was real. "She's not out of the woods," Harriet told Emily that afternoon, who had returned to sit beside Willow's stall. "But she made it through the surgery." "That's huge." Emily didn't leave the clinic. She slept in the truck, refused to miss any updates. I admired her stoicism. She asked smart questions, kept calm, and followed every instruction. But I knew she was terrified. Anyone who's watched a horse battle colic knows that recovery isn't linear. It's 2 steps forward, 1, and sometimes 3, steps back. On day 2, Willow spiked a fever. 104.2, Rachel reported grimly. Gums are darker again. CRT is up. We feared endotoxemia, a dangerous condition caused by toxins entering the bloodstream from compromised gut tissue. We immediately added polymyxin B to her treatment, adjusted fluids, and ran a full blood panel. Her WBC count was down. So was her albumin. Everything pointed toward systemic inflammation. She's fighting, I told Emily when I brought her the lab results. This is rough, but it's not unexpected. We're going to stay ahead of it. We started plasma transfusions that evening to support her circulation. By midnight, the fever dropped to 102. She stopped refluxing. A faint, gurgling gut sound returned in the right dorsal quadrant. That was the first moment of real hope. By day 4, Willow passed her first small pile of manure post-op. We all stood around it like it was gold. I remember Harriet actually fist-pumping. "Good girl," Emily whispered, tears in her eyes. "You're not giving up." Every vet and tech in the ICU had grown attached to Willow. She had that quiet resilience, never kicking or fighting, always watching. Even with IV lines and surgical pain, she allowed us to check her with only a soft nicker of protest. I've seen horses less sick become violent. Not Willow. Her temperament helped save her. We began slowly reintroducing oral fluids and small amounts of mash. When she took her first few mouthfuls and kept them down, I knew we were turning a corner. By day 7, her blood work stabilized. Her gums were pink. Heart rate, 44 BPM. She even let out a little impatient stamp when Emily came late with a treat. That mare had life in her again. But the emotional toll had been massive. Not just for Emily, but for everyone on the care team. I remember sitting outside the barn with Rachel that evening, eating the first real meal we'd had in days. "I didn't think she'd make it," Rachel said, shaking her head. "Not with a 540-degree twist. Horses don't come back from that." I nodded. "It's rare. Timing saved her. And her owner. If Emily had waited another hour to call." We didn't finish the sentence. We didn't have to. After 10 days in ICU, Willow was cleared to move to a recovery stall. She'd lost weight. Her surgical incision was healing well, though she wore a belly band to protect it. She still needed multiple short walks a day, careful feeding, and monitoring for signs of post-surgical adhesions. But the worst was behind her. Before discharge, I went over a strict post-op care plan with Emily. Controlled turnout, no riding for 90 days, regular check-ins. She took notes, asked every right question. "She's lucky to be alive," I told her as I handed her the discharge papers. "And lucky to have you." Emily gave a tired smile. "I think we're lucky to have her." When Willow walked up the ramp into the trailer, this time on her own, we all stood a little taller. She wasn't just a patient anymore. She was a survivor. But her journey wasn't finished, not by a long shot. It had been nearly 2 weeks since Willow's surgery when Emily backed her trailer carefully down the gravel path leading to her home barn. The air was warmer now, spring had finally begun to thaw out the ground, and the quiet rustle of the wind in the trees was the only sound as Willow stepped down the ramp, slow but steady. She was lighter, physically and emotionally. The powerful musculature she once carried had thinned noticeably. Her coat was dull from the stress, and her eyes still had that watchful edge that comes from horses who've known pain and survived it. But she walked out with intent, a quiet dignity in every step. I met Emily at the barn 2 hours later. It was time for Willow's first at-home check. I could see Emily had done everything by the book: clean shavings, fresh water, a slow feeder installed, and the belly band rewrapped. A large whiteboard listed her feeding schedule, walk times, medication doses, and vet check-ins. Willow stood quietly in her stall, ears pricked forward, watching us with interest. She still had her IV catheter bandaged up, though we planned to remove it that day. Emily had stuck to every directive we gave her. It was one of the reasons Willow was doing as well as she was. Heart rate's 40. Gums are pink. Good gut sounds in all quadrants, I said as I pulled the stethoscope away. Incision site looks clean. No signs of discharge, edema, or dehiscence. Emily exhaled, as if she'd been holding that breath all morning. "She's walking 10 minutes twice a day now," she said. "Very slow, but alert. And she seems happy." Happy was a word I didn't take lightly with recovering horses. Many horses coming out of colic surgery face weeks of postoperative depression, stress, or even behavioral changes. But Willow had that light in her eyes again. Not all the way back, but definitely returning. We removed the catheter and reviewed the next 2 weeks of care. Willow still needed careful management to avoid complications like adhesions, scar tissue in the abdomen that can cause further obstruction, or colonic displacement. There was still a long road ahead. You'll know before anyone if she starts acting off again, I told Emily. Appetite, water intake, manure frequency, track everything. Call me, even if you're not sure. Emily nodded. She had a spreadsheet already printed and pinned to the stall door. I'm on it. Over the next month, Willow's recovery unfolded step by step. At 2 weeks post-op, she began hand-walking twice a day for 15 minutes. By 4 weeks, we introduced limited turnout in a medical paddock, no grass, no companions, just space to stand and move a little. She was cautious at first, sniffing the ground, flicking her tail, but not attempting any foolish movements. At 6 weeks, we started slow reintroduction to a fiber-rich diet with soaked hay cubes and beet pulp, gradually increasing as her weight came back. Her energy returned in increments. Her coat regained its shine. What I remember most was the first time I saw her trot, barely more than a shuffle, but with ears forward and a confident push off the ground. I was at the barn that day for another case and caught the moment as I walked past the paddock. I stopped, watched, smiled. It's moments like that that stay with you. At her 90-day post-op check, Willow was nearly back to her old body condition. Her muscle mass was returning. Her incision had healed fully, leaving only a faint scar under her belly band, which Emily still used occasionally when she worked with her on the ground. She wants to work again, Emily told me as we watched Willow move at liberty in the round pen. I can tell. She perks up every time I bring out the lunge line or the grooming box. We ran a final set of blood work. Everything came back normal. Start with groundwork. Light work on the line. No tack for now. Let her tell you when she's ready. And Willow did. Over the next several months, Emily kept me updated with videos and messages. First canter under saddle today, light and short, or back to hill work, she's loving it. Each update was a marker of resilience, a testament to what timely care, intensive treatment, and sheer willpower could accomplish. I visited one late summer afternoon for a wellness check. Willow had a shine to her that almost glowed. Her stride was long and fluid. She looked like a horse that had never spent a day in ICU. You know, Emily said as she ran a soft curry over Willow's back, I still check on her at midnight most nights. I don't think I'll ever not. I understood that. Once you've nearly lost a horse, especially to something as fast-moving and merciless as colic, you never take a single day for granted again. I don't know how to thank you, she added. You already did, I said. You called when it counted. You listened. You followed every single instruction. You gave her the chance. That's what made the difference. Willow turned her head and nuzzled Emily gently at that moment, nothing dramatic, just a soft, quiet thank you. It was enough. Looking back, I've treated dozens, maybe hundreds, of colic cases. Not all of them make it. That's the brutal truth. Horses are powerful animals with fragile systems. When their guts go wrong, it can go downhill fast. But Willow was different. She had everything against her, a 540-degree colon torsion, significant reflux, systemic inflammation, but she had the one thing no textbook can teach and no drug can replicate: time. Emily called early. We acted fast. The team at the surgical hospital was ready. And Willow, she wanted to live. Even now, I use her case to teach younger vets and interns. I tell them, you never forget the saves. You'll lose some, and those will hurt. But when you see one pull through something like that, you'll remember why you do this. Willow reminded me why, and she still does.